Imagine a country where beauty has been elevated to the status of a national ideology. A country that churns out Miss Universe winners with industrial regularity, where every city block, every modest home cherishes a quiet dream of a crown and sash. Venezuela is the world's factory of benchmark female beauty, gifting the planet icons like Irene Sayas, Alicia Machado, and Stefania Fernandez. Here, girls are taught from childhood to hold their posture and smile with perfect radiance. Here, blue-collar fathers and school-teacher mothers scrape together pennies for that first evening gown and runway lessons. Beauty here is not just an aesthetic category, it is an obsession, a highway, a national project akin to a space program. It is the belief that flawless features and perfect body proportions can serve as a passport to another world, a way to escape the quicksand of everyday life. The mirrors in the shacks of the Patere slums reflect not the poverty of their surroundings, but future queens practicing their 1,000-yard stare. This paradox is striking. A nation that has been balancing on the brink of a humanitarian catastrophe for decades, with hyperinflation, devastating wallets, and empty shelves in stores, continues to invest in something you cannot eat or wear, perfection of appearance. Beauty here has become a strategic resource, the last winning lottery ticket for millions. But behind this glossy, carefully constructed facade, behind the dazzling smiles on posters, lies a mundane, gray reality, a daily prose that would make any homemaker in the developed world shudder. Behind the scenes of the pageant runways, a different drama unfolds, the drama of survival. And it feels all the more acute precisely because it is happening not on the periphery, but in the very country that once seemed a symbol of abundance and oil wealth.
Faith in beauty as a social elevator has become a kind of collective religion here, replacing faith in institutions, careers, and education, which have ceased to work as guarantees of a stable future. Before we dive into this world of contrasts, please do one small but important thing: subscribe to the channel. Consider it essential for keeping your karma as flawless as a Miss Venezuela smile. But seriously, subscribing helps us tell the stories the news ignores and makes this world a little easier to understand. Thank you, and now to Caracas. Dawn in Caracas. Maria, 32, an elementary school teacher, wakes up in the bedroom she shares with her parents, her brother, and his family. The first morning ritual is not a cup of coffee, but checking the water. Today, there is none, just like 3 days ago. She reaches for plastic jerry cans, filled in advance during one of the rare water days. Then to a small mirror. On the shelf lies a modest arsenal: mascara, foundation, and her main armor, a bright red lipstick from a brand long forgotten here, but the tube is guarded like a relic. With a thin, precise movement, Maria applies a flawless winged eyeliner and covers her lips with a juicy, life-affirming color. This makeup is not a whim. It is armor, a public face, a mandatory condition for facing the world. With this face, it is not shameful to stand in a multi-hour queue. With this lipstick, you still feel like a woman, not a hunted creature. In a cramped room where beds stand almost touching and personal space is measured in inches on a nightstand, this morning ritual returns her sense of self, preventing it from dissolving into the general family chaos. She cannot control the water supply, the power outages, or food prices, but she can control her eyeliner and the brightness of her lips, and therein lies a small but real power over her own life.
An hour later, she is standing in the shade against a supermarket wall, at the tail of an endless snake of women just like her. The goal? 2 kilograms of government flour at a subsidized price. The queue is a separate life, exchanging news, quiet barter, "I have salt, do you need it?" shared waiting under the scorching sun. In Maria's purse is a tattered lesson plan she is trying to review. Her salary is less than $10 a month in equivalent, and this money is enough for only a few days of modest food. But today she isn't thinking about money. She is thinking about flour, about managing to bake arepas, corn pancakes that will be the only filling meal for the whole family, before work. Her red lips, a bright spot in the gray crowd, are a silent protest against the surrounding decay. It is her way of saying, I am still here. I am still alive. 4 hours later, clutching the coveted bags, she rushes to the bus stop, almost at a run. 30 pairs of hungry and equally tired children's eyes await her at school. Her day is just beginning, and ahead lie not only lessons, but endless conversations with children about why there are blackouts at home, why dad went away for a long time, and what the word hyperinflation means, which they hear on TV. Maria, balancing on the edge of emotional burnout herself, is forced to be not only a teacher for them, but a psychologist, a big sister, and that adult who maintains at least an outward appearance of calm and order, perhaps the only oasis of structure in their chaotic world. In an economy where the national currency depreciates faster than it is printed, and traditional paths to success have collapsed, plastic surgery has ceased to be a symbol of luxury. It has turned into a pragmatic, sometimes desperate, instrument of social mobility. For millions of poor families, a daughter with perfect looks is not just a source of pride. She is the most reliable, albeit risky, business plan.
The logic is simple and ruthless. Beauty opens doors. A beautiful girl can marry a man with money, often significantly older, sign a lucrative contract abroad, or, in an ideal scenario, break onto the runway and become a queen whose fees can lift the entire clan out of poverty. Therefore, investment in the body begins long before adulthood. In kitchen conversations, mothers discuss not so much their daughter's school grades as the prospects of their faces and figures, calculating what can be corrected and tweaked if a chance ever arises. In this world, even the medical dictionary is reconfigured. Words like rhinoplasty or liposuction sound as mundane as cold or flu because they are embedded in family plans and dreams. The culmination of this strategy is the quinceañera, the 15th birthday celebration, which in Venezuela has long lost its innocence. For many girls from poor neighborhoods, the gift for transitioning into adulthood is not a princess dress, but a surgeon's scalpel. Rhinoplasty, breast augmentation, liposuction, this is the modern rite of passage. Parents save for years, denying themselves everything, selling their last valuables, or taking out unbearable loans. The story of a family from the Petare slums is not an exception, but the rule. A construction worker father and a cleaner mother ate only rice and bananas for a year to gather the sum for their daughter's new chest by her 15th birthday. The refrigerator in their house was empty, but their daughter's future, in their view, was getting brighter. It's like buying her a plane ticket that we don't have, they say. Their words sound almost absurd if you forget the context. In a reality where borders are closed not only by visas but by poverty, any attempt to improve a child's starting position is seen as an investment in an imaginary airfield where the only chance might land. And if that chance is tied to looks rather than a diploma, the choice for many is obvious. But the foundation is laid even earlier. Across the country, in sleeping districts and working-class barrios, modeling schools for children spring up like mushrooms. Girls are brought here from the age of 5. They are not taught to recite poetry or sing. They are drilled. Stretching, choreography, posing, the catwalk strut, facial expression training. The schedule is rigid, almost like that of an Olympic reserve team. The founder of a famous school that raised dozens of queens openly says, "We look for diamonds in the rough and polish them." This polishing is hard labor for a child and a huge financial sacrifice for a family that often gives its last pennies for courses. But the alternative is a joyless future in a country where the profession of a doctor or teacher does not feed you. A beautiful wife will find a rich husband or go abroad. This cynical but realistic mantra has become the main motivation. Thus, the body turns into capital, the main hope for salvation. However, even a perfect appearance, polished by surgeons and trainers, does not become a reliable shield. It does not save one from the humiliating, exhausting struggle for basic necessities, for elementary human dignity in everyday life. The girls walking the improvised runways in the halls of these schools still return in the evening to homes with leaking roofs and empty pots on the stoves, and the contrast between the stage and the kitchen only amplifies the internal tension with which they grow up. If plastic surgery is a ticket to a hypothetical future, then the daily life of a Venezuelan woman is a journey into the past, into an era of scarcity that many in the world have already forgotten. In a country possessing vast oil reserves, basic feminine hygiene products have become luxury items, and acquiring them is a quest for ingenuity and endurance. Hyperinflation, reaching astronomical figures, has made a simple pack of pads or tampons a financial challenge.
The price of one pack can reach a third of an elderly person's monthly pension, or half of a young worker's daily wage. Shampoos, deodorants, quality soap, creams, all these have moved into the category of gold goods. And if previously buying a new shampoo was a mindless household habit, now it turns into a carefully calculated decision: buy hair product or add to the budget for rice and beans. In such conditions, even a trip to the store for hygiene supplies becomes an emotional trial, accompanied by feelings of guilt and internal bargaining. In this situation, women were forced to take a painful step back to practices their grandmothers considered relics of the past. Reusable cloth pads and homemade tampons made of cotton wool and bandages are back in use. The process of washing, boiling, and drying these items amidst water and power outages turns into a separate drama. Social media and neighborhood chats are filled with recipes for homemade shampoos made from clay and herbs, and deodorants made from baking soda and coconut oil. This creates a cruel sense of déjà vu for the older generation, recalling harder times, but without the social stability of the past. For the young, it becomes an unexpected lesson in bodily vulnerability. What used to be hidden behind bright advertisements and beautiful packaging suddenly comes to the forefront, exposing how closely female dignity is tied to access to the most basic hygiene products. Conversations about periods, smells, shame, and discomfort begin to sound louder than ever, breaking old taboos. Against this backdrop, a unique barter economy has blossomed. Unwanted cosmetics gifted by relatives from abroad, perfumes past their expiration date, a half-used mascara, everything becomes currency. In special groups on Telegram and Facebook, women trade lipstick for a pack of pasta, mascara for a bottle of cooking oil, face cream for baby food. The makeup bag has turned into an asset portfolio.
A special bitter irony is added by the state food boxes, CLAP, which were supposed to soften the blow of the crisis. They regularly contain pasta, canned sardines, or tinned meat, but you will almost never find soap, laundry detergent, or hygiene supplies there. The state essentially admits food is a necessity, but female hygiene is not. This returns women to a position where their basic physiological needs are considered secondary, forcing them to spend already meager resources on what is accessible to everyone in the civilized world. When hygiene problems are solved with exhausting efforts, an even more fundamental question comes to the fore: the question of physical safety. Because in Venezuela, even a simple date can turn into a deadly dangerous enterprise. And in this logic, barter, a seemingly harmless exchange of lipstick for pasta, also becomes a way to create networks of mutual aid, where every deal is not only about goods, but about trust, about knowing who to call if soap or medicine runs out tomorrow. Sounds wild, right? If you are impressed by the resilience of these women, hit the like button on this video right now, and write in the comments, what is something you would never dare to do for survival, and what do the heroines of this episode have to resort to? We are truly interested in your opinion. Romance in Venezuela exists under siege conditions. The country has led global rankings for homicide and violent crime rates for years. This leaves a mark on every sphere of life, but especially on the fragile world of dating and relationships. A date here is not a spontaneous walk under the moon, but a carefully planned operation to minimize risks. The first and unbreakable rule every teenage girl learns is, don't show your phone. A smartphone, especially a modern model, is sure bait for a robber.
Therefore, girls, even when going to a meeting, often carry two devices: an old brick phone without functions, which can be taken out on the street without fear, and a smartphone hidden in a bra or secret pocket, taken out only in a safe place. Behind this simple rule stands an entire internal map of dangerous city zones that young people build almost instinctively: which blocks to avoid, which intersections to consider red, and on which transport one cannot fall asleep even for a minute. Any display of carelessness here can cost too much, and this knowledge inevitably poisons the very idea of frivolous flirtation. The very concept of going for a walk has almost disappeared. Parks empty out after 6 p.m., turning into territories controlled by gangs. Urban streets die out with the onset of darkness. An unofficial curfew sets in, dictated by fear, not authorities. In this reality, a classic date in a cafe followed by an evening stroll along the promenade is an impossible dream. Young people are forced to seek refuge. Most often, these are large, guarded shopping malls like Sambil or CCCT in Caracas. These are islands of relative safety, where you can sit in a food court, drink coffee, and talk without fearing that someone with a gun will approach the table in the middle of the conversation. The story of Juan and Carla is typical. They have been dating for a year, but have never been to a late-night movie or a street restaurant together. All their dates take place in a crowded shopping center, because, as Juan says, in the park, they might not only take your phone, but also your shoes. Love in these sterile, air-conditioned spaces learns to do without starry skies and walks, settling for plastic tables, bright lights, and the general hum of the crowd, which is both annoying and soothing, because where there are many people, it is slightly safer.
The housing crisis, exacerbated by hyperinflation and mass migration, has led to young people living with their parents well into their 30s or even 40s. Renting a separate place is incredibly expensive, and buying is almost impossible for a generation whose salaries are measured in single-digit dollars. This has spawned a specific culture of hourly motels, moteles de paso. For many couples, this is the only opportunity to be alone. Brothers, sisters, parents, and children are crammed into one apartment, and privacy becomes a luxury. Motels, often with bright neon signs, are not dens of vice, but a forced solution for normal relationships. A date turns into a short, hourly paid escape from reality, after which one must return to an overcrowded family home. Thus, even the most intimate human feeling, love, is forced to adapt, to bend under the pressure of external threats and economic ruin. And this forced pragmatism gradually changes the romantic culture itself. Instead of long courtships under windows, there is messaging in apps. Instead of walks through the night city, there are scheduled meetings, adjusted to power outage schedules and public transport. Love here does not become weaker, but it grows layers of caution and calculation that life simply does not require in other countries. Behind the wall of the noisy, crowded shopping center where Juan and Carla meet, another, no less heavy drama unfolds, the consequences of which will echo in Venezuelan society for generations. The exodus of over 7 million people, every fourth resident of the country, has spawned a tragedy with children at its center, and those they are forced to call mom for the second time in their lives. In a typical classroom in Caracas, Valencia, or Maracaibo, half the students live without one or both parents. Their mothers and fathers are trying to survive and earn money in Bogotá, Lima, Madrid, or Santiago, leaving the upbringing of children on the shoulders of their own parents. This is how a whole generation of WhatsApp orphans is formed, and the phenomenon of the grandma mom arises. For the children themselves, this situation means a constant sense of lack, not only material, but emotional, when instead of a living hug, there is a pixelated smile on a screen. They grow up simultaneously proud that their parents are there where there is work, and angry at them for leaving, and these ambivalent feelings become the background of their growing up. For 68-year-old Carmen from Barquisimeto, the morning begins not with coffee and a newspaper, but with the screams of 3 grandchildren, 5, 7, and 9 years old. Her daughter, Maria, left 2 years ago, leaving the children in her mother's care to work as a maid in Santiago. Carmen, whose pension in bolivars disappears in one trip for groceries, has become a mom again, just like 30 years ago, cooking breakfasts, getting them ready for school, checking homework, putting them to bed. Her own health, with aching joints and fluctuating blood pressure, has faded into the background. The only thread connecting the family, and her main consolation, is the nightly video call. The children shout over each other at the screen, showing drawings and telling school news, while Maria, tired after a 12-hour shift, tries to smile and says she will come soon, although everyone knows that soon could mean years. She sends $50 a month, a sum that cannot buy a pair of good sneakers in Chile, but in Venezuela, it means a pack of chicken, a kilo of cheese, and medicine for grandma. In these minutes, when the connection breaks now and then due to unstable internet, Carmen tries not to show her daughter how tired she is, and Maria tries not to reveal how lonely she is in a foreign country. Each protects the other from the full scale of their pain, and in this silent conspiracy, another facet of female solidarity appears, built on mutual sparing. This WhatsApp parenthood has become the new norm, a painful surrogate for family. Parents watch first steps, school plays, and teenage crises through screen pixels, while grandparents, who have already earned their right to rest, are sleepless again by children's beds. Remittances from the diaspora, measured in billions of dollars, are not just financial aid. They are a ransom paid for their children's childhood and their parents' peaceful old age. But no money can compensate for the emptiness in a house without a mother's hug after a school fight, or the fatigue in the eyes of a grandmother who, at 65, is forced to run after a mischievous first grader. Those who remain in the country without support from abroad find themselves in an even more desperate position, forced to take humiliating and extreme measures simply to put a bowl of soup on the table. In these families, decisions are made at the limit, whether to sell the last jewelry, forego medical treatment, or send a teenager to work instead of study. And every such choice leaves an invisible scar that will later manifest in character, worldview, and how these children will build their own families. When transfers from abroad do not arrive, and work, if there is any, pays a sum not enough even for a week, the last thing remaining is used, one's own body and remaining physical strength. Venezuelans, whose pride has always shown in well-groomed, luxurious hair, are now mass parting with this part of their identity for the sake of food. On the border with Colombia, on the Simón Bolívar Bridge, a grim business has long existed. Buyers assess the thickness and length of braids, offering between $20 and $50 for them. For a woman from the border town of San Antonio, this could mean a month's supply of rice, flour, oil, and perhaps a piece of meat for the children.
The scene has become commonplace, and therefore even more heartbreaking. A young mother, squatting, covers her face with her hands, while a machine buzzes, shaving off her chestnut hair. Beside her on the ground lies a plastic bag of food, payment for her former beauty. She cries not so much from pain as from shame and helplessness, but glancing at that bag, she wipes her tears. The children will be full today. For many of them, hair is not just an ornament, but part of a cultural code, a symbol of femininity, grooming, belonging to a world where external form is still valued. Losing it, they seem to tear off one of their last social shields, but circumstances prove stronger than symbolism. This act of desperation is just one of many. The profession of bachaqueros, women speculators who stand in multi-hour queues for subsidized goods to resell them at a markup, has become the main income for many. They study supply schedules, know all the distribution truck drivers, and form entire brigades, taking places from the night before. Their labor is grueling and humiliating, but it is an honest way, by local standards, to feed themselves. Others go on risky shuttle trips to Cucuta, Colombia, carrying Venezuelan rum or coffee to exchange for medicines, diapers, and sanitary pads that are missing at home. Every such trip is a game of Russian roulette with the road, the danger of falling into the clutches of robbers, losing goods, returning with nothing. And yet women take these risks again and again, because the alternative is to look into the eyes of hungry children and shrug. And in the digital space, an even more surreal survival strategy is born. Young girls locked in their homes due to danger on the streets find salvation in virtual worlds. They spend long hours farming gold and rare items in massive online games like RuneScape.
Virtual coin, obtained by killing dragons or completing quests, is then sold on specialized platforms to real players from the USA or Europe for real dollars. This money, transferred via PayPal, becomes a lifeline. Thus, cyberspace, usually associated with entertainment, turns into a grueling digital mine where funds are extracted to buy a piece of bread in the real, starving world. And yet, through this daily horror, through despair and struggle, something indomitable lives in Venezuelan women, which the rest of the world can only marvel at and learn from. They master interfaces, currencies, and game mechanics just as rapidly as they once mastered new cosmetic brands or fashion trends, turning their own adaptability into capital immune to inflation. The paradox of Venezuela is that the harder the circumstances, the brighter the love for life burns in its inhabitants, especially women. This is not feigned optimism, but a deeply rooted psychology of living for the day, a vivir que son dos días, and it manifests in small things turning into acts of everyday resistance. Going out for bread in stretched sweatpants, without makeup and with unwashed hair, here is considered almost a disgrace. Even if the only remaining lipstick, bright scarlet, was bought 3 years ago, it will be applied to walk 2 blocks to the bakery. This always dressed up is not coquetry, but a way to maintain control
dignity, and a human face in a world that systematically tries to take them away. It is a ritual that keeps one toned, reminding oneself and others, I am still here and I have not given up. Behind this lies a simple psychological truth. When large structures collapse, a person clings to small, manageable rituals, be it morning makeup or a carefully ironed skirt. Thus, an invisible front line is formed, passing through the mirror in the hallway, not through official news reports.
When the system finally fails, and this happens regularly, and the city is cut off from electricity for a day or more, Venezuelans do not take out candles for a romantic dinner, but guitars, tambourines, and stockpiled rum. An improvised fiesta begins. In neighborhoods plunged into darkness, neighbors gather spontaneously. Someone brings meat that is about to spoil in the warm refrigerator. Someone brings the last pack of pasta. Someone brings ratatouille from home vegetables. On the common street or in the yard, a grill is lit, speakers are connected to a car battery, and under the sounds of salsa or llanero, a candlelight party begins. So once in Caracas, during a massive blackout, neighbors of several high-rises staged a grand dinner for the whole street, turning a common misfortune into a reason for solidarity and joy. In the dark, laughter is heard better, voices sound louder, and people who barely exchanged a couple of words in the elevator during the day suddenly discover that they live not just next door, but in a common space where they can sing, cook, and share simple supplies together. On such nights, time seems to slow down, and anxiety is replaced by a strange, almost childlike feeling of camp community. This community, solidarity, reminiscent of the way of life in Soviet communal apartments, is not just a tradition, but a survival mechanism. People share not only food during outages, but also medicines, information about where flour was delivered, and look after neighbors' children. In this collective at least together, at least fun, at least with our own, lies the secret of psychological resilience. Dancing, music, laughter, and endless jokes, even about the darkest sides of the crisis, become a therapeutic tool. They do not deny the horror of reality, but reclaim islands of normal, full human life from it.
This incredible contrast between total poverty and unquenchable love for life brings us to the main, deepest conclusion about the nature of the human spirit. And the longer the crisis lasts, the more noticeable it becomes that without this horizontal network of mutual support, society would have long since cracked at the seams. It is in the jokes in the yard, in mutual favors, and improvised holidays that the feeling is born, we are not alone, we hold on to each other. Looking at Venezuela today, many in the post-Soviet space catch themselves with a bitter sense of déjà vu. In our own 90s, there were also empty shelves and food ration cards, queues for everything in the world, and a feeling that the world had collapsed. There were our own shuttles, our own grandmothers saving families with pensions in depreciating bills, and that same fierce grip on life manifested in home feasts amidst total scarcity. This echo of our common, painful memory makes the story of Venezuela not a distant, exotic tragedy, but something close and understandable. We know this taste, the taste of uncertainty, when plans are built not for years, but until the next paycheck, if there is one. We remember how materialistic values collapsed, exposing the essence, that what is really important is family, friends, mutual assistance, and simple human kindness. Perhaps that is why many, watching footage from Caracas or Barquisimeto, instinctively believe in the ability of these people to withstand. This is not abstract faith in foreign resilience, but recognition of our own scars, inflicted in a different era and in a different place. Precisely because we have lived through this, we can say with confidence, based not on empty optimism, but on experience, they will survive. A people capable of turning a blackout into a street festival and the loss of a job into a reason to master a new digital profession in a virtual world possesses a colossal adaptive resource.
Their main wealth is not the oil reserves in the depths, but the indestructible resilience of people who have passed through the crucible. We can and must empathize, not as outside observers, but as those who have partly walked this path. Our empathy should be expressed not in condescension, but in respect, and in quiet but firm faith in their strength. Peace, stability, and prosperity will one day return to this beautiful, tormented land.
In the meantime, the women of Venezuela, with their unconquered souls and invariably bright lipstick, continue to teach the world a major lesson every day. Even when everything is taken away, the last word always belongs to the human spirit, which can dance salsa even on the edge of the abyss. And in this dance, combining despair and joy, the universal experience of all societies experiencing a crisis is reflected. When familiar supports collapse, the only real support becomes the inner core and the ability to unite with others to hold on at the edge. The history of Venezuelan women of the last decade is a chronicle of deprivations that the human psyche seemingly is not designed for. They were deprived of food, light, safety, medicine, the right to privacy, and often the right to raise their children. They were forced into humiliating deals, forced to bury dreams and put up with constant fear. And yet, having passed through this hell, they came out of it, contrary to everything, unbroken. They proved a fundamental truth. A woman can be left without electricity and running water, but she cannot be deprived of dignity if she does not give it up herself. Their dignity is in a neatly tucked blouse, ironed on goals, in eyelashes painted before going to an empty store, in a song sung in chorus in the dark. It is in the persistence of grandmothers rereading textbooks to help grandchildren with lessons, and in the determination of mothers shaving their heads to feed the family.
This is not the heroism of despair, but titanic, everyday fortitude woven into the fabric of every day. Their struggle is not for wealth or fame, but for the basic human right to remain human in inhuman conditions. And in this struggle, they do not just survive. Contrary to logic, in the darkest corners of the crisis, they manage to find and share sparks of joy, warmth, and beauty. Therefore, their story evokes not pity, which humiliates, but the deepest unconditional admiration. Looking into it more closely, one can notice that in every small gesture, in a hemmed skirt, in a portion of stew set aside for a neighbor, in a joke told instead of a complaint, is hidden huge internal work to preserve one's self and human face. These are not loud feats worthy of headlines, but quiet daily victories over dehumanization.